welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to show you first two little structures for which you only need paper and a pair of scissors to make these journals. And in a third structure I'm then going to show you how to make a bigger book. For this you'll need to gather some more tools and materials, but we'll worry about this later and start right away with the first structure. This book is going to have 6 pages plus a front and a back cover. We only need a sheet of paper and a pair of scissors, and it's perfectly fine to start with one that already has writing on one side. Take your sheet of paper and have the bad side face you, and then make first a fold so that this gets really long and skinny, and unfold again, then fold the other way around. Fold one of the flaps up to meet this fold, flip around and do the same on the other side. And force all folds and then unfold again. Put up the middle section like a mountain, and then you should see a middle crease here, and you cut along this, just this middle section, and then you do this 3D move here and fold it up. That's when the magic happens, and it's a bit complicated, so pay good attention how to do this. I'm going to show you once again. Hold it left and right of your cut, and then turn this around, and then you have these 4 sections. You just pair them and fold up your book. So now we got our book here with a front cover, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inside pages and a back cover, and you can now get your markers out and decorate the whole book. As you can see, we see nothing or very little of this inside page that was already printed on in my case, but if you left that free, you could use that to maybe add a poster to your book or something like that. Starting with an A4 page is great because you could put this on a photocopier, or you could design it on your computer, print it out and distribute it amongst family and friends. This is why this structure also sometimes is called an instant zine like a magazine, because you can easily reproduce and distribute these kinds of books. With these 6 pages of an instant book, you don't get very far with journaling, but as I just mentioned, it's great for producing something and making something in way of art. But for those of you who are looking more to make a sketchbook or something like that, I have a second structure for you that's more suitable. For this second structure, it's better to take a large sheet of paper. This is a drawing paper that's A2 size, and you can get something like that from a art craft hobby store. But I'm also going to show you how to do it with just an A4 sheet of paper. And to try it out now, just take any sheet of paper you can get and just try it out. And if you feel like this is a structure that you like, you will keep your eyes peeled. You could even take a sheet of newspaper and paint over it white, and then fold this and use that for drawing. So you don't need to use specialized paper like I'm doing here. When using A4, start like we did for the instant book. So first fold like this, unfold, and then we fold this again 2 times. Actually, you can see here the folded up sections will be your pages, so the page format. You can just stop when you're at a size that you like, but in this instance we keep folding, and we'll end up with a page size and page format that's just the same as we had for the instant book. Now we're going to make our cut from here all the way up to here, but there you need to stop, otherwise if you cut through there you'll just end up with 2 strips of paper. And then take one end and start folding it up. You can just follow the folds that you already have there and keep folding it, and that's your book finished. Working with a big sized sheet isn't so different than before. You first make your fold to make it skinny, but then because we have more space, we can take the flaps and fold it up. And if you want to fold further because you have a really huge sheet, you'll see in a second how this would be done. You then unfold and fold in the other direction. I'm halving the paper here first again, then I take the flaps and lift them up, both of them. And now I'm going to show you how to fold further. So you turn this around, and at first you have a flap here too. So the flap is folded up to the fold like before, but now we don't have a flap. And so there's this is what we want to have. So you flip that fold. So if it was a valley fold before, you make it a mountain fold. And now you have there two mountain folds, and you can take one of them and line them up with the other, and then you have halved that space, and you repeat that, and in the end you have another flap to take up. Now you have an important choice to make. So this is going to be my page, and you have to put on the upper left corner, you have to put it in the way you want it. So if I put it like this, this is going to be the top and this is going to be the bottom, but I could also turn it around and use this as a landscape format. Turn your sheet of paper such that on the upper left corner you have a rectangle that is oriented just like you want your book oriented. And then you could start cutting, but let's mark first. So we mark a horizontal line along the first fold you see there, just underneath your first rectangle, and you're cutting from the left up until you reach the last crossing. And you need to leave that last bit attached, otherwise your sheet of paper will just come off and you just cut off a strip of paper. And then in the next horizontal fold, you're going to start cutting from the right to the left just until the last crossing, and again you leave a bit attached. And like this you go through your whole sheet of paper, from left at the top and from right one's underneath, from left one below, from right the next, always alternating. If you've done this correctly, you'll end up with this long snake of paper, which we now just fold up. And like you've seen with the smaller paper, we just start with the folds we already have there. When we folded the A4 sheet, we could use all folds like they were in the paper. And now with a larger sheet of paper, if you do several more folds, you might have to flip a fold. So here we have this natural fold would go like this, but because we folded this from here, this doesn't really work, so I have to flip the fold. But if you enforce these folds properly before, then it will be very easy and to just flip it. In this case here, I do not have to flip it. I have my pile of paper here on top, and this wants to fold to the bottom, and I can just keep on folding. And now this one here again, I have my pile of paper on top, and this wants to fold to the top, so I have to flip this so that it continues here on the bottom. And this one folds naturally, and the next one's flip again. So let's review what we got here. The instant book we made had a front and a back cover and 6 inside pages. The small zigzag accordion that we made now has, so if this is the front cover, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inside pages, and this could be the back cover. And if you want to, you could take some cardboard or cardstock and glue this to top and bottom to have a bit more of a cover feeling to it. You can find a large sheet of paper, you can get quite a lot of pages. This one here has almost 60 pages to fill. But I promised to show you also how to sew a book and make it a bit more traditional looking. And this one you could give arbitrarily many pages. As I said, you need a few more materials and tools for that. Let's take a look. So we need a couple of instant books, just like we made them before. I've used colored ones. Of course, you can take any paper just like before. I have 5 ones here, but you can just take as many as you like. You'll need at least 3, but yeah, I suggest making 5 or more. You also need a thread for sewing. Now for bookbinding we usually use a linen thread, and it's not very likely that you have that at home. This is a thread used in the kitchen to tie up a rose. Maybe you have something like that. Otherwise you could try a darning thread, an embroidery thread, a jeans sewing thread. If the thread is thinner like a jeans sewing thread, you should double or triple this up to get some bulk in your thread. Just search your house for a thread that seems suitable for you. If it's too thin and rips too easily, it might actually rip while sewing. That's why I said a jeans sewing thread, because usually you can't tear this with your hands. If it's too thin, it will just look weird. So yeah, rose tying thread, that's a good thing. You'll also need a needle with an eye that's big enough so that you can get your thread in. And you need something to punch holes. I just attached a needle to the handle of a paper scalpel, but if you don't have something like that, you could try to use your needle to punch the holes. You just need something to protect your hand while you're doing this. You could, for example, use a cork on the end and then punch with the needle. You'll also need a pair of scissors to cut your thread and a folded up towel.
Well then, let's dive right in. Place your folded up towel in front of you, have your punching tool ready, and take your first instant book. Find the middle and then place it open on your towel. You now need to punch 2 holes through the fold, both a finger's width from the top and the bottom. We now need to repeat that for all the booklets. To make sure the holes are at the same place in each one, it's best to use this first book as a template. To do that, take the next instant book from your pile, find the middle, slide it under your first booklet, which already has holes, line them up, make sure nothing slides while you punch the new holes through the holes you already have in your first booklet. And then you repeat that for all your instant booklets that you have and want to use for your finished book. Put all your punched booklets in a pile and do a last check and see that all your holes line up. Then cut a length of thread and thread your needle. Take your first booklet from your pile. We're going to start sewing now. Start going from the outside into the middle of your first book and come out on the other end. Simple as that. Then put the next book next to it, and the hole that lines up, you go in there and come out on the other side. Now you have these 2 ends of threads which you just knot with a usual double knot. If you do it correctly, then the thread end with your needle wants to come up in the direction of the second booklet, and this is where you put on the third now. You go in again at the same side and out on the other. And now there's a trick that's important. That's the most important step here. It's called a kettle stitch, which we need to do. So pay good attention here. You need to pass your needle now. After you pull the thread tight, you need to pass the needle between the 2 books from before so that the needle pokes out there between the pages. And then you wrap your thread once around the needle and then pull straight up. And so you made this little knot there. That's important for your book to hold together. Keep going like this, adding booklet after booklet, in and out, and at the end do a kettle stitch. This kettle stitch really is very important, so we're watching it once again slowly. When you've reached the last kettle stitch, you kind of do a reverse kettle stitch. So this time going from the edge of the book into kind of between the knots and make another knot, and then you can just clip off the threads. If you don't like these ends hanging at the spine, you can also pull them into the middle of your booklet. And your sewn book is ready. You can make it as thick as you want to. It's perfectly normal for this type of book to feel a bit wobbly and loose. This is what allows the book to open completely flat. If your book doesn't want to stay shut, then your sewing is a bit too tight. Just put it under a weight like a big book for a day and it will probably stay shut. Enjoy your book! So you should have a couple of books now, all blank, all waiting for your content. Do you already have an idea what to do with them?